We're continuing exponents. Now, before we can start with the problem solving on what we learned and putting it all together, I just want to stress the idea that everything about exponents is very much multiplication. And because of that, a lot of the confusion is when you're multiplying a lot of these different things, you have to realize that everything going on is multiplication. Now, of course, where it's needed, you have to do exponents before multiplication, but you'll see what I mean. So let me take a very simple example in terms of order of functions. When it comes to everything being multiplied, there is no order. If you do 2 times 3 times 4, now usually you do left to right. 2 times 3 is 6 times 4, 24. But if you did 4 times 3 first, you would get the same thing. It will be 12 times 2, which is 24. That's not the case when you have plus and minus in their operators. Now, just not to confuse with the plus or minus, if you have a negative 2 times 3 times 4, then again, this is not really a minus, it's a negative 2. So again, the same thing holds, that it doesn't matter what order you're doing, you're going to get the same answer, 4 times 3 times negative 2, or negative 2 times 3 times 4. So that happens in any case. And the truth of the matter is, it's important to note that when you have multiplication and division only, same thing holds true, because division, 3 divided by 2, is really just multiplication as well. It's 3 times 1 over 2. So again, if you had 2 times 3 over 2 times 5, since it's all really multiplication, because it's 2 times 3 times 1/2 times 5, you could do it in any order. You could do 5 times 3 divided by 2 times 2, or you could do 2 times 5 times 3 and then take half of that. You'll get the same number. So multiplication and division, there is no order because it won't make a difference. As long as there's no operator of a minus or a plus in there, or parentheses, obviously, that changes something. But in general, and even if there is a parentheses, again, we said that everything else is just multiplication. There's no difference. And that's going to be very important when we start doing these problems. So let's start here. A to the negative 4, flip it under 1, a to the 4th. We discussed that. This one looks a little scary because you have something to 18th power. But again, just look at the parentheses, it's all to the minus 1. So we just flip it under a 1, and it'll be 21c to the 18 to the first power, which means nothing when something's to the first power. So it's just 1 over 21c to the 18th, and that's it. How about this mess? Well, it's to the 0 power, and we talked about that. Anything to the 0 power is 1, and that's your answer, 1. Maybe now we should take the opportunity to discuss why it's 1. Well, we discussed this 3/6 divided by 3 to the 6th divided by 3 over 3rd. So let's imagine that if you have 8 to the 0. 8 to the 0, intuitively, it doesn't make sense why it's a 1. But if you think about it as like 8 to the 8th divided by 8 to the 8th, now you'll see, oh, well, like figures, whenever you put them over, they cancel each other out, it becomes a 1, right? 5 over 5 becomes 1. All right, so that's a better way of understanding why anything to the 0 power is 1 if you think about it as, dividing by the same exponent. A to the 3rd divided by a to the 3rd equals 1. And that turns out to be 3 minus 3, which is a to the 0. Okay, let's move on. We don't want to go past 5 minutes, but we'll see. A to the 7 times a to the 12, we talked about this. It's just a's multiplying across and just continuing to multiply 7 and then 12 times, which is 19 times altogether. Now this is where I was talking about over here, where there's a lot of multiplication going on. It wants you to multiply parentheses this times parentheses that. But since it's all multiplication, it really doesn't make a difference what order you do it in. And you can't really do it in any other way than just to multiply the like figures. So you'll say, okay, I'll do the 9 times the minus 1 here. The 1 is hidden, of course. And it'll be minus 9. Then we'll do this times this, which will be x to the 15th. And then we'll do this times this, which will be y to the 6th. Okay, and that's as simple as you can get there. Now don't get confused here with the minus x. It's not an operator. It's just minus x times 5. If it was really minus x times 5, it would be minus x. I mean, not times 5 to the fifth. It would be minus x to the fifth. It's just a minus 1 multiplying times x5 times y to the third there. Okay, you got to be careful with those negatives. Okay, let's do the last line quickly. So we have a division here. So 12 a's and 7 a's. You're going to have 5 of them cancel out, but again, you just do 12 minus 7, you'll have a to the fifth. Here's the same thing. It's dividing, and you got a whole mess on the top and a whole mess on the bottom, but division really is 9x to the 10th y to the third times 1 over x to the minus x to the fifth y to the third. And then you could see that everything is just multiplication and division, so you could cancel this out and make it a 1. Again, it'll be y to the 0, which we know is 1. And then you have the 9 divided by the minus 1, the hidden 1 there. So you get minus 9 times, and then you have the x10 over the x5, which cancels out to x5. That's what I get. How about over here? So we talked a little bit in the last video about the parentheses. You have to think about it as a to the third times a to the third times a to the third times a to the third. And then it becomes this, but we know better. We just have to do 3 times 4 there, so it becomes a to the 12th. And lastly here we have something here with the parentheses going on this part. So let's do the exponent here on the outside. This will become 1 over x squared squared, right? We took this part and we flipped it under a 1 and made it squared, x squared squared. Now again, this becomes x to the fourth because we're multiplying that. So let's bring the rest down. We have 6x3y times x to the fourth, and we use the like-minded multiplication because we can't do anything else. So we'll multiply these first and then leave the rest. 6 times y, x to the 12th. I'm sorry, see, I made a mistake there. X to the third times x to the fourth. You add the exponents and it's x to the 7th. There you go. Okay, leave your comments at the bottom, and if anybody has any ideas for the next video. Thank you.